And now in this tournament, Julius Baer Generation Cup, his next game is against Vasyl Ivanchuk, starting in a few seconds. That is a very cool matchup. The chess world is really looking forward to that. What do you think, Peter?
Well, incredibly. I mean, I was Magnus' second. I forgot in Linares maybe 16 years ago. And he had some amazing games with Ivanchuk, who would completely outplay Magnus strategically. And Magnus would hang in there, and Ivanchuk would be absolutely frustrated and not managing to win these games. And maybe he even lost one of them. I mean, people can look them up in the database. I mean, these were great clashes. And that they now play again, you know, half a life later for Magnus is amazing. And, well, it really warms my heart that Ivanchuk is getting to play here. He gets to play some tournament because we all know that he's locked inside with his country due to the tragic situation there. So, I mean, I'm very happy to see Ivanchuk doing well, and I even brought a shirt to support him, although, of course, as Magnus' coach, I have to hope that Magnus does well in this actual game.
And we can see now that Ivanchuk has played pawn d4 in his first move. What kind of a plan do you and Magnus have in this game?
I think generally my concept is that when I play, the guy I'm coaching plays Ivanchuk, I'm not capable of predicting what Ivanchuk does. I think one point with Vasyl then in Bilbao in a tournament, I checked that Ivanchuk had played 15 different opening against Anand's e4. So I prepared something for everything, and he played opening number 16 against Vichy. And after that experience, I just realized I cannot predict Ivanchuk. And yeah, that's life.
So are you just going to lean back now, Peter, and enjoy this great game between two legends?
I think so. I think this is a game that should be enjoyed for a lot of reasons. So yeah. I will do that.
Definitely. Peter, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take good care.
Thank you. All right, well, Peter said it. This is a game to look forward to, and it has started. Ivanchuk with the white pieces. Is it something crazy and unexpected?
Not necessarily crazy right now, but possibly unexpected. Magnus is the first one to think. He's paused now for almost 1 minute. This knight move, it's known, but maybe not the most popular move in the position. And yeah, I'm pretty sure Magnus wouldn't have looked at this move this morning, at least, or not for a long time. And that's why he's just deciding what move to choose now, how to continue. Do either of you two have experience with this one?
No, I must be honest, I don't have any experience, but when I'm checking the database, I can see the top-rated thing that has played it is Stockfish.
Oh.
with a God's rating of 3,617.
Yes.
Higher than God's, isn't it? He's better than God.
It's better than, well, it's better than God,
yeah, it's not really an animate object, is it? So we had this discussion yesterday that Ken said that if God had a ELO rated, it'd be 3,600.
Yeah, that's
Stockfish,
what he calculated.
And Stockfish is 3,617.
Hang on, I've got a Komodo Dragon is 3,609. And, yeah.
So they're better than God.
Not Leela Zero, apparently, okay. As of well, that was 2020.
Something's gone wrong here. They can't be better than God. They just can't. It's not possible.
Rise of the machines, they're taking over.
Yeah, everything. So.
All right. Well, these two legends, Magnus Carlsen is the closest human to being God in chess, the highest-rated player in the world. With a big smile on his face, he's probably enjoying playing the legend Vasyl Ivanchuk, and they have played each other so many times, these two, and Ivanchuk has beaten Magnus several times. We do have some interesting head-to-head scores in rapid chess. Look at this. 15 wins in the history of rapid chess for Ivanchuk, and 13 wins for Magnus. So Ivanchuk has got the upper hand.
Yeah, and that's a lot of decisive games as well. A few draws, but I mean, who beats Magnus once in their lifetime, let alone 15 times? And this is just the rapid as well. So he's got a track record. As Peter Heine mentioned, he's outplayed Magnus even more times than he's beaten him. And yeah, I mean, we're in for a really fascinating battle. I am slightly worried that Ivanchuk, after his start to today, will struggle slightly, but this opening seems to have caught Magnus off guard, and Magnus did spend 3 minutes eventually pushing a pawn, just keeping things solid. I vaguely remember studying this move years and years ago, and I thought it was quite provocative. I thought this would allow White to gain space in the centre at some point, but yeah, maybe at least Magnus wants to get Ivanchuk thinking for himself and get him out of his preparation. OK, Okay, early days. Ivanchuk, what will the genius show us now?
I can tell you very quick, and this is a very natural move. I mean, just asking the bishops where it's going to go, and Magnus now decides to keep the bishop. And as you say, David, he's moved in the centre, so all pretty normal at the moment, I guess, pretty considering normal. The position. But I can tell you a very quick, really nice Ivanchuk story. I was playing the European Club Cup with my team, which was Dukes of Kent. And I was board 1. We're over in Israel, in a place called Eilat on the south of Israel. And my team was mainly players who are about 2,200 strength. We were sitting in the bar, surprisingly enough. We're outside a bar, all 8 of us, looking at our games on the board, this little mini chess set. And the team captain, Chris Rice, was showing his game. And everyone was kibitzing, saying, Chris, why didn't you just play that? And he was getting so annoyed. He was like, oh, just shut up, just shut up. I want to look at the game. And everyone's like, you could have just played that. And then all of a sudden, someone moved a piece on the board. And he's like, oh, just leave it alone, shut up. And he looks around, and it's Ivanchuk. And Chucky had just walked over and just seen a chessboard, seen us looking at chess. And he was just being quietly, like a quiet assassin behind us. And he'd just come in, and he just came in, and he joined us, and he just joined us because he loves chess so much. And Chris was like, oh my words, did I just tell Chucky to shut up? And I was like, oh, sorry, Chucky, you can join us if you want to. And Chucky sat down, and he was analysing for us, and he was just talking chess, with us all. And we weren't the strongest chess players, in general, we're some of the weakest players there, but he just loves chess so much. He just sat there and he just joined in, with us talking chess for about an hour or so. That's how much he loves it, So, yeah, it was nice, really nice. You could see, just how human he is as well with that. So,
yeah. No, for Chucky, chess is like an art, it's something to be enjoyed. And talking about art, Rich De Silvio sends us a tweet where he shows us a painting, with chess pieces and art. It's very, very nice. I like it. And if you too want to send in your chess pictures, your selfies, your thoughts, your questions, then remember to tweet us using the hashtag ChessChamps, and we will feature them on the show.
Yeah. The artistic Ivanchuk still with more than 15 minutes on the clock. Magnus is down to little less than 11 minutes. So has he been surprised in the opening here by Ivanchuk?
He's been surprised, but normally even when Magnus is surprised, he'll kind of recompose himself after 30 seconds, 1 minute, and he'll move. But I think this is just the respect he has for Ivanchuk, really slowing Magnus down. And there are a few moves he can play. The black king can castle to safety, very natural move. The black light squared bishop can come out. Black can trade a set of pawns in the centre. There's a bunch of options. Maybe that's why Magnus is just taking time to pick between, just to see kind of what his instincts tell him. But, OK, he does castle, the safest move in the end. And that clock advantage, that 5-minute advantage that Ivanchuk has now, he needs to maintain it. He needs to keep it. We did see that several times now in this tournament when he drops lower on the clock, the blunders have slipped into his game. But, yeah, right now, I love the opening choice, just keeping pieces on the board. It's not going to be kind of a slow kind of grind. It's not going to be a boring endgame. I just want to see these two really go at each other. And Ivanchuk, White's priority now is to try and get the king to safety. White's king is still stuck in the middle, a couple of moves away from castling.
Mm. Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm just taking out the database and I can see the top player who's played this is actually Alexei Sarana, and he played against Arjun Erigaisi. And unfortunately, Sarana lost.
So with White?
With White. This was played quite recently, a few months ago in May. And there, White tried to do what you suggested, tried to kind of unravel the king by developing the knight. But here, well, Ivanchuk goes for a much more creative approach. Instead, he's threatening to push the b-pawn forward and trap the bishop. But Magnus, he quickly spots that and develops the knight, covering the b4 square. And I like this move by Ivanchuk. It's unorthodox, it's unusual. And he's kind of maybe making a square for his king to run to. But maybe, well, I think the much more important idea is perhaps to step the e-pawn 1 square forward.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's really neglecting his piece development, though, Ivanchuk. Simon, what do you think about this move?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I mean, I'm not sure I like it that much because there is a real problem, as you just summed up there, David. I mean, like, look at White's king, look at White's pieces. I mean, look at Black's king already castled. Black's opening up the position somewhat. And this, to me, seems very dangerous for White. It might be OK, but the king's going to take 3 moves to castle. You have to move the knight, the bishop, the king. So 3 moves to get your king safe. And that's a lot of moves. So Black has basically 3 moves to gain an initiative, and he's done that. So he's... and the king is wandering. Wow. So, but I guess if White can maintain the centre, he's going to be doing all right. But can he do that, David, here, do you think? I mean, with that move, wow.
I mean, if it pays off, if he gets time, as you mentioned, Simon, to start pushing pawns forward in the centre, maybe moving his knight on the next turn, then we'll start praising Ivanchuk. But if it goes wrong, then we will start blaming this setup with the king kind of out in the open now. Definitely don't try this at home, kids. Don't move your king out before the rest of your army, but maybe it just needs to be done. And Magnus's idea with this last move, I guess, was to push forward, but this is just going to be an exchange of pawns. Black can choose 3 different captures here, but I mean, the question is where to put this knight. Maybe you have to park it on the edge of the board somewhere. And already it just looks like it's really opening up. The reason I suggest this square for the white knight is because otherwise the black bishop might come and start harassing this white king. At least now if the bishop enters this square, it can be chopped off by the white knight. But yeah, I mean, it's really playing with fire. And the position, whether it becomes open on the next move or not, maybe black can just wait, for example, with a rook. Yeah, white's king is going to be in eternal danger. Another idea, quite typical for these types of openings, is for the black knight to move out the way at some point, the black queen to jump out with some checks, or maybe at least to start pushing this pawn forward. I don't think this is going to happen yet, but this happens in the Nimzo Indian, and the opening we're looking at right now, quite frequently. And, OK, Magnus does just keep the tension. He moves his rook across, and, OK, Ivanchuk has to play with haste. Get this knight out the way, get this bishop out the way, at least pretend that you've got active pieces.
That's not such an easy thing to do when you've developed your pieces in such a weird way. I mean, like, how are you going to get that light squared bishop out? Where is that knight going to go? I mean, questions, 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 because it's never been seen before. It's like, are you going to...
I guess one of these 2 squares. This looks like a different variation, a different branch of the Nimzo Indian, where white's knight usually uses this square. I guess sometimes it can jump forward into the dream f5 post. At least it opens up this bishop, potential attack against this. Meanwhile, Magnus, his last move has hinted that he wants to kind of maintain this pawn where it is, and he'll push forward with this one, creating a square for the black knight. But what is Ivanchuk doing?
He's breaking the rules, David.
I'm not surprised.
Wow. I mean, look at this diagonal now. OK, Magnus just pushes a pawn, but this diagonal, if a black piece ever lands here, this king is going to be in so much trouble. Oof. I've got to say, I would never, ever play like this with white, but if he gets away with it...
So can Magnus just move his queen, for example, in the next move?
Exactly. Yeah, you might be right, Kaya. Either, I'm not sure which one's best, the bishop to this square or the queen to this square. And then, for example, if, let's say, white makes a silly move, then if this pawn pushes forward, this bishop is going to give a check, or the queen is going to use that square, like you mentioned, and deadly, deadly times. It's going to be hard for white to survive. So big moment for Ivanchuk. He needs something quick. OK, he puts his bishop on this diagonal, at least blocking any potential checks. But Magnus, he's going to possibly push one of these 2 pawns, or maybe move this knight out of the way. Just start opening things up towards the white king.
Yeah, I was going to just say that plan as well, David. You mentioned using a lever to open up your opponent's king, because the only thing that's protecting white's king, he's got this lovely pawn, what we call a pawn chain. It's like a bike chain, right? All those pawns are like guarding each other, and they block all the files towards white's king. So often when you see your opponent has a pawn chain like that, you need to break the chain, break his bike down. And that's why David's moving the knight move, gets ready to throw the pawn forwards and try to break that chain. So I like this move a lot, which he's played, just getting ready to attack. And you know, I expect to move his G pawn now, knowing Chucky now, you know, so just to try to stop that plan. But it just looks so dangerous for white, because white is not fully developed, and it's his king. You know, look at that king. It looks so scary on that square.
If you could swap it round and kind of plant it in the corner where this rook is, then you'll be very happy. But the king is still a mile away. And the problem is you can't really drop the king back to safety, because then your rook is just stuck for the next 15, 20 moves for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, it's not looking like there's an easy solution. You mentioned there, Simon, that if Ivanchuk is consistent and ambitious, which he clearly has been so far, then he might take it to the extremes and just push his pawn forward, clamping down on this square.
And given his king another square, it might need to move to. But again, all these moves come with risks because you're loosening your position. So White does have a very loose position, but if he can maintain it and finish his development, he will be better because that pawn chain, it gives him a strategic advantage. I mean, he's got the better pawn structure, just not the better pieces. So it's kind of that. It's a fight between the pawns and the pieces here.
Yeah, I agree. I like your idea, Simon. It's kind of bold. My approach would have been actually to not play so risky, even though I do love my pawn pushes. I would maybe develop the knight to the g3 square, and then, you know, I'd maybe make a move that you hopefully would be proud of, Simon. Push the h-pawn.
Why not? Go for it, yeah.
As far up the board as that can go.
Yeah.
After all, we're breaking the rules.
You might as well keep breaking them, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he has played your move there, Ivanchuk, moving at knight, and Magnus has now played the other move that David mentioned and given himself some good squares for his pieces.
Yeah, this one's shaping up to be a fascinating battle. It's just a clash of ideologies. It's White going for the long term, thinking, as Simon mentioned, I have the better pawn structure, I have great squares for my pieces. It's just I need the time to get them there. And Magnus is going to be trying to just be the destructor, and he's going to try and create chaos before White is fully mobilized. Wow, I mean, yeah, they're two courageous players, these two. Much more courageous than most of us.
I think it's easier playing black in these positions. You know, you've got to think about who's got the easier moves to play often, not who's better, but whose position is just more, you know, easier to, you know, play the right things. And here Black can just put his pieces on good squares, move them towards the king, try to swap off some of White's good defenders and open up the position. It's kind of as simple as that. On the other hand, White's got to think, right, how do I get my king safe? How do I get my rook in the game? Where do I put my bishop? There's many more problems for White to overcome here, and that means it's like, you know, it's like a minefield for White. And okay, he's lunged there with a pawn, trying to take some squares, I guess, away from Black's pieces, David.
Yeah, but this pawn can be captured en passant.
Has he forgotten about en passant? Has he forgotten? Yeah.
Get a grip on.
Yes.
Yeah, this pawn could be captured as if it just moved one square by the black pawn on c4. Maybe we'll show what Chucky has in mind. It does feel very risky. We mentioned that Black wants to use this square for a knight. His knight is currently terrible. So Chucky pushes this pawn forward. If Magnus ignores it and drops his bishop back, also a very sensible move, then at least this knight is sidelined for the near future. But the question is, this pawn, it just moved two squares. It cannot bypass the black pawn, which sits on the black 5th rank, and you can take it off the board. Now you attack the knight as well. What is White's intention? Is he going to take back this pawn? It looks ugly. If you take back this pawn with the queen or rook, then Black gains even more time, bringing the knight forward to a great square, hitting the white queen. Is his idea really to just kind of ignore this very strong pawn and take here with the white knight? I mean, again, it's so brave, it's so loose, but maybe there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe there's no way for Black to punish. Look how much time as well Magnus is burning on the clock, because Ivanchuk is surprising him on every turn with these weird, wacky moves. And if your opponent surprises you, it's human nature to pause. It's a fascinating battle right now. This knight defended by the white bishop.
I don't know. It does feel like Ivanchuk is taking liberties with his position. And, well, we're going to see. What does he have in store? Is he going to play it safe? I personally would probably grab that pawn with the queen. But no, he's gone for it. He's allowing Black a huge pass pawn on the 3rd row. Oh, this is crazy stuff now.
He just wants to win this pawn on the next move. Ivanchuk, after breaking all the rules, putting his king, I mean, not castling, first of all, putting his king on this square, wasting time with development, he's just going to be greedy and go pawn hunting. Maybe win this pawn, win this pawn as well. Is greed good? I don't know. This pawn is also attacked. He's threatening to win 3 different pawns, but it's all about the white king. If Black can somehow push pieces to the other side of the board, it might not survive.
The bar is inching up for Magnus Carlsen in this game. Is it hard to understand the plan Ivanchuk has?
Yes. I mean, I guess his plan now is to just win some pawns. Long-term, as Simon mentioned, the black pawn structure is inferior. White has just a beautiful structure. Everything long-term now is great for white. So I think his plan is to just be as ambitious, as maximalist as possible right now, and then just survive until the end game when he can convert that advantage. Magnus, it's all about short-term. He needs to do something before. I mean, if white's bishop, light squared bishop comes out, if white's rook from the corner comes out, it's just game over. White is going to have an advantage.
Yeah, because I have to say, apart from that very far advanced black pawn, the black pieces look a little bit defensive. I mean, they're all, you know...
Bunched up.
Yeah, bunched up and towards the back ranks.
Yeah, they don't have any clear purpose, do they?
Not yet. They need to start jumping out. The black knights need to start centralising.
I think he's just got to go for it. I mean, this break we mentioned, the Freddy pawn would be a lovely... You called it a lever, as we said, to get rid of the pawn chain. That is, I'm looking at that move. You can't play it yet, but if you move your knight, you can get ready to play it. I mean, just play, you know, both sides are playing with fire. So move your knight right into the centre of the board and then just try to move, you know, blast open position somehow. That's what kind of thing I'd be looking at if I was black here, at least, you know. Yeah. Open it up quickly. Don't worry about your pawns here. If you're on the black side, just don't even look at how many pawns have been attacked. There's too many.
Stop counting.
Yeah, there's 3 pawns being attacked, so don't even try to defend. You know, that's not the right way to look at this position. The right way to look at it is, my opponent's king, it's over there, I need to open it up. So let's see how I can do that. And we don't think any defensive faults here. Yeah,
the currency of this position is definitely just open lines and active pieces. And Magnus, look at the clock time, 4 minutes. I think this might be the lowest or the biggest time differential we've ever seen Magnus on the wrong end of.
Yeah.
Less than 4 minutes against Ivanchuk's 11. If you asked me beforehand to make a prediction, I would have said it would be the other way around. Look at Ivanchuk. He's not in pain, he's just calculating. That's his calculating face, head in the hands. And yeah,
I think they both look a little bit worried in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I reckon they're both enjoying it, though. I mean, how often do they get to play nowadays? They played a lot when they were a bit younger. But, OK, the queen coming out. We didn't predict this.
Very mysterious move, that one. I mean, that gets in the way of the lever that we mentioned. That pawn that's behind the queen now, I thought was a key element for black. I thought black needed to use that pawn to open up the king. Can you really attack the white king enough just with your pieces? Or are you going to try to change to the queen side now and try to use your B pawn? So that is a mysterious move. And actually, the valuation bar now, I mean, I think in this game, don't look at the evaluation bar, right? Because it's like, it's not helping looking at it.
It's not saying it's winning for either side. It's just saying, OK, maybe it wasn't the best decision.
Yeah.
But, yeah, maybe you're right, Simon. This pawn is going to be pushed at some point. The queen does protect on this diagonal, so trying to keep this pawn alive, maybe.
But lots of people will be asking, including myself, why does that pawn have to stay alive?
Yeah, that's a good question. For example, you can take it with a rook. I guess Magnus will just use this opportunity to gain time now that a piece has landed on the square. He can gain time with his knight. But, yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong right now with just retreating. Just like a smash and grab. You take the pawn, you run away. Game goes on.
Exactly.
I mean, Magnus, it looks like there's a pin on this line, but you can't profit from it. For example, this pawn, the white pawn can't capture because it's pinned, but the white knight is safely protecting. I mean, what could Magnus's idea be? It's so mysterious. I'm struggling to understand. If someone played this move against me, I would be just in complete shock for a minute or two.
It looks bizarre, and the idea of getting rid of that pawn is, you know, Ivanka, you mentioned it, I think it's just so natural, because that is a scary pawn. You know, that's one pawn in your side of the position. Just get rid of it. You know, even, you know, let's see what our opponent's plan is here. But I expect now Chucky won't play that, right? Because
Magnus guessing.
Because it's so obvious. He'll do something which is not so obvious.
And, wow, there in front of us we see the best or the top computer suggestions, and actually taking this pawn isn't one of them. Wow. The computer suggests, I mean, an even more inhuman move. Taking this pawn. I mean, what is this pawn doing? I guess the idea is to actually reroute the knight to a better square, to an outpost on c6. This is a nice post for the white knight, but I mean, it just feels like a step too far for humans. If we explain the second top computer move, that makes some sense. Jumping in with the white knight, ganging up on this pawn with both knights now. But again, it feels provocative. It feels like you've moved this knight twice already. Do you really want to move it a third time while you're lagging behind in development? I think the top two computer moves are hard to see. Knight takes pawn and knight to this square. Or They're not hard to see, but they're very hard to kind of believe in.
I wonder what's wrong with this rook takes pawn. Now I'm like, there must be something wrong with that move, or is there? I mean, like, I can't see it.
The third move. The third move is like, what on earth?
Oh God!
The third move, slide to the right, slide back with the king.
That's a joker's move, that is. I mean, you know, stock.
There's something wrong with this stockfish.
And stockfish is apparently stronger than God. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Not with moves like that. So
we'll never see this third move. I think this king retreat. That's not Chucky's style to play kind of this safe, kind of cowardly approach.
No,
Type of thing I might do, but not for Chucky.
Will he play the computer's top choice? What do we reckon? Yes or no? I mean,
I think he'll take one of these pawns, maybe this one, but also possibly this one. The more I look at it, the more I think, actually, yeah, this one makes some sense.
It's a beautiful square for the white knight after it's not winning the pawn, it's where it's going to go next. And that square, protected by your pawn, is just a beautiful square. You know, your knight is totally safe there, controlling many good outposts.
Yeah.
So I think it does make a lot of sense, actually.
The only downside is you leave this pawn alive, and you might even leave it on the second rank where it ties down your pieces. But
he took it the wrong piece.
Wow, he took it with the wrong piece. We said it was not about winning the pawn, it was more about planting your knight in this square. He's taken it with the bishop.
Wow.
We see the evaluation bar react. It does. And wow, look at what Stockfish says. This wasn't the top computer recommendation, but Magnus, he's happy to give up his rook. Wow, he's trying to just get rid of this white bishop. I guess he's happy to take back, and he'll use his dark square bishop to dominate on those dark squares to try and go for the white king. What a decision, played instantly by Magnus. He finally predicted one of Ivanchuk's moves. And in the current position, if white doesn't get greedy and take this rook, I guess his bishop is in risk of getting trapped anyway.
Heating up even more at the moment this game.
They're both playing so creatively.
Yeah.
Every move.
I'm really impressed by Magnus's last move, though. That shows such class, just to voluntarily just give away the rook and take in turn the dark squares. I love it. And I just think White's position now is very, very dangerous. I don't see Ivanchuk surviving.
Yeah, in practical terms, if Black can take over the dark squares, it's going to be really dangerous for the white king, so he tries to offer a queen trade.
I like this move because, you know, no matter what the evaluation bar says, where, you know, maybe Black shouldn't exchange queens. I certainly would not want to exchange queens if I could. But when you're in danger, get the queens off. It's like when your king's in danger, doubly get the queens off, because it's the most dangerous attacking piece. So I do approve, I think, of this idea, at least.
Agreed.
But I wouldn't want to exchange queens here. I mean, can I give a whole rook up? This would be my first thought. It might be absolute rubbish. Oh, he's exchanged queens.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it was quite good, because suddenly, look at that pawn on b3. That is going to become a monster. And as long as it stays on the board and stays alive, then Black will be better.
Then again, White is one pawn up temporarily. If White can, as you mentioned, Ivanka, get rid of that Black b3 pawn, at least he's surviving. At least he has long-term chances. I'm worried about that white bishop still. That white bishop is surely going to get hit. I mean, yeah, it's so hard to call. Maybe there was just no safe square for the Black queen, as you mentioned, Simon. But keeping the queens on the board would have been kind of the most consistent approach. Swapping queens, surely Ivanchuk's going to survive. And, OK, the Black rook moves. I guess Magnus's idea is that the white bishop has to trade itself off anyway, and Black will still control the dark squares.
But can White now get rid of that dangerous pawn again? You know, if White can get rid of that dangerous pawn, I don't know if he can, actually, but...
Yeah, maybe we jump in and explain, because this bishop is trapped right now. Its only escape square is really to go back and capture the Black knight, so a trade. And Simon, you want to get rid of this pawn immediately. It makes a lot of sense. I don't see any reason not to. I guess Black, for example, will just drop the bishop back, and still, even though it's the endgame, even though the queens are off, this king is still not entirely happy. For example, if there's a knight trade, this check is very annoying. No real great square for the white king. If you step back, then again, you're going to block the entrance of the game, entrance of this rook into the game, and Black will win a pawn back, so Black will be only one pawn down now, and this bishop is the best piece on the board, controlling this whole diagonal. This is the problem with putting pawns on light squares. Your dark squares become very, very weak. So Ivanchuk thinking.
Yeah. How important is it for him to at least keep his time advantage now?
It's very important. I mean, if we reach a position like this one on the analysis board, then it's going to be so easy for Black to play. So right now we're expecting this one, but maybe Ivanchuk looking for alternatives.
Well, he has had quite a few surprises in this game already. Maybe we should expect something strange.
Yeah, it's possible. The White Knight could go and protect that bishop, but that feels like it's really, really risky. Look at Ivanchuk's face.
I was going to say. Yeah, he looks like he's getting some divine inspiration there. Like, yeah.
He's talking to his pieces. He's talking to his white bishop, saying, his dark squared bishop, saying, "Where do you want to go? Do you want to trade off? I want to keep you on the board, but how do I do it?" Yeah, Ivanchuk.
Yeah, he has.
What a character.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's one of a kind.
The world would be a much sadder place without him, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
He does really bring a lot to chess. Yeah.
There is also that famous game from Berlin World Blitz Championship when he checkmated Magnus Carlsen. He had that jump when he realized he had put the world champion checkmate. And Magnus was furious.
I wonder if we can get... I mean, I'd love to see that one, actually. I don't know. I think I've seen it, but... Yeah, when he's sort of...
The first time I ever saw Ivanchuk, I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was watching a videotape, like a VHS old-school videotape, and it was some commentary of a tournament. It was a series of rapid tournaments, and in one position, I think it was against Anand, he had a checkmate in one move, and the commentators were like, "It's checkmate, it's checkmate." And you can see him staring at the board, just like he's looking, and he's getting frustrated. He can't find the move, and he can just bring his queen into the corner, and it's game over. And he had like a couple of minutes on his clock, and then the clock ticked down and down and down. He had a few seconds left, and then he made a different move. He just didn't see it, and he ended up losing. And he was like literally tearing his hair out afterwards. And I mean, that was just, for me, that was the moment I realized, okay, Ivanchuk, he has his ups and downs,
yeah.
but he is a genius. And actually, in this famous memory test that I had with Magnus last year, I put that position on the board. Magnus was like, "Yep, it's Anand against Ivanchuk, 1994, blah, blah, blah." And so Magnus, even at a young age, he was studying Ivanchuk's games as well. So, I mean, he's playing one of his chess heroes. I think everyone's chess hero,
Yeah.
Ivanchuk.
Do you think Magnus does have a chess hero? And who do you think it is? Many, yeah. I mean, do you guys have a chess hero? I mean,
You,
like
Simon.
at all? Wow, I wouldn't. That's really, really sad if you do. But I don't know. I mean, like, anyone you really look up to?
Because you love
Like
Tao,
how?
Simon, don't you?
Yeah, I'd say Tao's probably my chess hero.
When I was growing up, when I was really little, you know, I grew up watching the Karpov and Kasparov matches, and that was like super interesting because we watched
battle
that.
between
Yeah,
those
we
two.
watched that as a family,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
we
that's
used to go
nice.
on tally text and just follow the moves. But the people who I really followed every single move of, and I read every single article I could, were of course the Polgar sisters. I loved them.
Yeah.
And also someone British, a British late top female player called Susan. She was Susan Arkle at the time, and then she
Okay.
became Susan Lalich. And I followed everything that she did, and you know, she was such an idol of mine. But yeah,
Several legends in the
David,
game.
could you name one hero of yours? No.
I mean, there's too many.
There's so
that's the
many,
problem.
yeah.
I'll say Kramnik, just
Kramnik,
because
yeah,
he
maybe
was at
you
his
said
peak
Kramnik. Yeah.
when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Similar style-ish.
Yeah,
As well. Similar-ish.
I based a lot of my game on him.
Yeah.
And now, did we see surprises from Ivanchuk? What's happening on the board now?
We saw some surprises.
The kid even more open now.
Yeah, you're right, Kaya. That's the big thing. We did see the bishop trade itself off for a knight, so black now has full control over the dark squares. That black dark square bishop is going to be potentially the MVP, the most valuable piece. And meanwhile, the white king is trying to run away from its gaze, trying to run away from that dark square bishop. But the problem is, the black rook now can come down and take a pawn. Okay, first Magnus is trading off a set of pieces. And white's light square bishop is kind of hitting thin air. Black's dark square bishop is also not hitting anything right now, but it just feels like it's got so much potential. And that black b pawn, the black b pawn is alive. And it's very scary. It's a pass pawn, 2 squares away from promotion. It might even tie down a whole rook.
yeah, still a very complicated position, and I have to say I am very scared for Ivanchuk. You know, part of me, you know, I really want him to win. I know we're meant to be like completely impartial and neutral, but it would be so good if he managed to pull off something. But Magnus playing it safe, defending the pawn, and still Ivanchuk has to deal with a threat against his A-pawn.
But can't he now at least get his knight to that the other decent square now, which looks like a nice plan to me. I mean, the knight maybe has done its job on the square it is. I mean, they say the square is a brilliant square for the knight, but only if you can back it up. And I'd be bringing it to the queen side here.
Oh, whoops, sorry. My arrows. Here you can give a check. And when the king moves, this square, Simon, this is the one you want.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's nicely protected by the pawn. It stops a black rook getting behind the black pawn, attacking the rook. And, you know, I'm gaining
full control over this diagonal.
Looks like a long
pieces.
whip.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, this looks very nice for white. I guess the rook will move, and still a problem with this pawn defending it. Black's rook is going to come and take it soon, and still also, how do you get rid of this? Guy?
If you can get
a thorn in your side,
isn't it?
Never going to go away.
Yeah, that B pawn could be a game winner. It's so hard, and Black's knight is actually fantastic as well because it's guarding it. And
it's this duo, right?
Yeah.
How do you ever get rid of them?
Yeah.
But it's somehow you kind of want to switch pieces. Maybe this is should be a new variant. You could switch that knight for the bishop. You know, if they could switch places, then you know White's probably doing okay now. But unfortunately.
I mean, also in the current position, Ivanchuk, he was looking in pain for a second, spending a lot of time on the clock. He could potentially plant his bishop on this square.
So he could do that.
Could
try that, yeah.
There's a few options here. He could, for example, also go after this pawn with his bishop and try and round it up. Maybe now, finally, I just want to get this rook in the game. I'm not sure where to go, but this rook finally breathes some life, breathes some fresh air.
You could try doubling up here, but it does look very slow, doesn't it? You know.
Could you try to go for the pawn immediately? I know it's super loose. Put that knight in the middle of the board.
Yeah,
hit the pawn, although
there will be a bunch of tactics. For example, the pawn might step forward, and after the rook takes, due to a pin on this file, maybe knight takes pawn. It gets really sharp here. This is a check. The knight can't be captured, and then this knight would be attacked. The rook after it as well. But yeah, I mean, this is the stuff going through Ivanchuk's mind, but he needs to move.
Yeah, under the minute now, Vasyl Ivanchuk in this tough game against Magnus Carlsen. And the stars in Magnus's position, the black knight and that b-pawn.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. The bishop has come out to attack the pawn, and so we might be seeing some insane complications.
And okay, he moves this rook. I think it was time. This looks good as well. In that last variation, we showed White's knight. If it does retreat into the centre of the board, it would have been loose, undefended. So he's getting ready, potentially, to defend that square. If the White knight retreats to d4, that's then going for the black b-pawn. But Magnus, okay, he's got a small time advantage. He needs to keep that black pawn alive if he wants to win the game.
Speaking to himself there, it looked like. It even looked like he said, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I regularly say that to myself during games.
Yeah.
Just, you got this, you can do this, there must be a move, come on.
Magnus also ticking under 1 minute on the clock. What a game between two legends. Will we see a winner? Is that the most likely result in this one?
If there's a winner, it's most likely to be black right now. It's level pawns again. After all that chaos, all those sacrifices, it's back to normality, back to equality. But, I mean, if that black b-pawn disappears, White has chances to win. The way it might become a draw eventually is if you imagine the knight's disappearing from the board, the rook's disappearing, and then it's opposite colour bishops. White has a light squared bishop, black has a dark squared bishop. They could just kind of neutralise each other, just pass by. So that's the way this game might fizzle out. While Magnus kicks the white knight.
So it's encouraging the knight to come to a square. I suppose the thing is, if it comes into the middle, White has to worry about the rook lining up against those. There's a lot of moves that White has, so where's that knight going to go? I mean, bringing it to the centre does seem the move that White wants to play now, attacking Black's pawn.
And he's got 30 seconds left on the clock to take his decision. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to get very stressed when my clock is running less than 20 seconds.
I'm like you, Ivanka. I mean, if I get under a minute, then I just fall apart. I like, come as shaking mess. I watch David, and he he has a couple of seconds left, and he's as cool as anything, you know.
That way.
He gave a check. That's fine.
Okay.
He's got to retreat it next move, though. It's that square that Simon mentioned, the c6 square for White. White's knight is going to go back slightly, and at least it's on a nice outpost.
Maybe he's going to sack a pawn in the middle and try to get his own passed pawn at some point as well. You know, that'd be a typical Chucky thing to do. So the white rook is behind white's most far advanced pawn.
Magnus under 10 seconds. I've never seen him this kind of, well, very rarely at least seen him this panicked when he has a very healthy position. Yeah. The only time you ever see Magnus like this is when he's struggling or losing.
And do you see Magnus? He's blinking furiously. I mean, I don't know whether that's a tell, but it just seems like he's super concentrated. He's ready to pounce. Rook has to move.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Make a move, Magnus.
Rasmus.
I don't know. Rasmus.
And, OK, the black rook does move, keeping an eye on that white knight. The white knight's protected, everything's protected. The white king still feels a bit poorly placed, though. And
wow, what's this?
Oh, a tactic by Ivanchuk, taking a pawn. Temporary piece sacrifice. Magnus missed this for sure.
Wow.
He has to react. Do you take this piece back? He doesn't even take the piece back.
Oh, look at this. They are both reacting.
Both reacting massively. White's now just a pawn up. Yeah. What are we missing?
It's a pawn. I mean, black's got very good control here, so it's not a simple pawn. Black's knight's great, everything, but he's lost. Magnus has lost his biggest trump, and his biggest trump was that passed pawn. So if anyone can win now, well, it looks like Chucky has chances, but black very active, very active.
And look what Ivanchuk's doing, you know, he's just overprotecting his pieces. The rook moves and proves itself. This is very good play from Magnus.
Yeah, the hustle is on, though. Magnus has upped the pace of the game. Yeah. He's started playing every move instantly after making a small mistake there, losing his pawn. And he's really trying to break through to this white king. OK, look at white's pieces. It's like checkers, but which we know Ivanchuk is great at. All of his pieces pretty much on light squares. All his pawns, apart from one, all on light squares.
You know, I think I haven't been that impressed by Ivanchuk's last moves, and I think Magnus now has the advantage. I mean, he has control of the dark squares. His pieces are great.
I've been very impressed by Ivanchuk's last moves, I've got to say.
Oh.
I thought he was potentially in big trouble, but he's neutralised everything.
I mean, now, you know, the knights are coming off as well. I mean, I still think Magnus can win this one because there's a lot of, like, dark squares going on late in that position, even though he's a pawn down. But
what is it about for Magnus now? The B pawn is off. What is the winning card for him?
Active pieces. Okay. He has to put his rook on the second row. His bishop has to get maximised on the best squares. And, well, Ivanchuk taking a step back with the bishop.
Yeah. Again, trying to reroute that piece to a better square, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Don't know. It's still
anyone's game.
Tough game.
Ivanchuk has so many pawns lined up. I mean, could those be a winning card for him?
Yeah, the problem for Ivanchuk is it's quite likely the knights will disappear, and then black can blockade the pawns on dark squares, so they'll all be stuck on light squares eternally. And even if you're one pawn up here, like Ivanchuk is, if they're blockaded on a certain colour complex, if they can't step forward, that's why opposite colour bishops tend to lead to a draw if every other piece is off. And this bishop move, this bishop manoeuvre, really instructive, just blocking out black's rook on the second rank. OK, Magnus, if he wanted to win, had to keep the knights on, which he does. This is so tense. I mean, all three results possible, I reckon. I think maybe more likely that black will win than white, just because black's pieces are going to be very active. But, OK, key moment. If Magnus trades off these pawns, I reckon we're headed towards a draw. If he leaves them on the board, if he pushed his pawn down one square further, that black H pawn could be a potential winner. OK, Ivanchuk setting up some traps. That black knight is not actually entirely stable. The pawn defending it could be dislodged at some point.
But the knight jumps into activity there as well, so it's very, very close, this game all the way. And he's clearly playing for the win with that last move, as you said, David, just not exchanging, keeping pawns on the board. And if black can ever win white's pawn in the corner, the H pawn, then he'll probably win the game now. So...
so risky.
It is very risky.
Not wanting a draw at all.
It is risky, but, I mean, are we going to see a situation where it's difficult for white to move a piece?
I don't know. White still wants to push his F-pawn forward. Now that black is controlling the dark squares, if white can put his pawns on dark squares, he'll fight for that control. I think that's Ivanchuk's next move if he gets the opportunity. White's F-pawn stepping forward one square. Suddenly,
Yeah.
Real threats.
You really want to create counterplay when you can. If you can move the F pawn and the one next to it, you get your own pass pawn. And I know White would love to just get rid of Black's pawn that is blocking his pawn, if that makes sense. But, you know, that one lined up with the rook. So he needs to try and blast that one away somehow, and he's going for it.
Yeah, he's pushing forward.
And then you could certainly see Ivanchuk winning that position if he can push the other pawn next.
And is it better now to have the pawns on the dark squares?
Yeah, you're fighting for control over that colour complex. Also, I mean, this one, is it a strength or a weakness? In an endgame, it's going to drop off. It's just going to be picked off by White's bishop. So that's why Black has to keep the rooks on the board. OK, he drops his bishop back. He's coming from a different angle now to start checking this White king. I have no idea who's going to win this one. I've got to admit, the White king steps back. That's clever. There's no check on this square with the bishop because the White knight defends it. And maybe safe for now. It's hard to get this knight back into the attack, to be honest, with the Black knight. He steps back with his bishop. Is it time for White to start moving?
Also, maybe that bishop can now come and harass White's pawns. So it's like dangerous that you know, both sides are going to have very dangerous pawns there. I think this is going to be a decisive game.
I think he's just going to go for it, and
They're both going for it.
It's a race.
Wow.
Who's quicker, though? For example, if White takes a pawn, Black will take a pawn. White steps forward. Black takes a pawn with check. White is about to make a new queen, but Black's also making a new queen.
Ooh.
It's just a race, and we're going to see this type of thing happen. It's chaos on the board.
Incredible.
And goodness me.
Who's winning here? It's anyone's guess. OK, Magnus actually doesn't want to enter into that race. He just drops his knight back in the current position, and he stops this White pawn advancing. This White pawn is covered for now.
And they have to calculate this race with less than 30 seconds on the clock. Ivanchuk, what is his next move?
Well, he has to deal with the threat of bishop takes pawn, because that is coming. And this is an excellent move by Magnus, because that knight, as well as eyeing up the White pass pawn, is also got an eye towards the White king. And wow, rook attacks the knight.
I think it's like whoever's pawn is going to be more dangerous here, and it does look like somehow it should be Magnus's, I feel, in the corner. But Chucky's got his pawn 2 squares from queening as well, right? They're both for a short time. He's grabbed the pawn.
His knight. He's giving up his knight. He's banking everything on that Black H pawn. He's about to promote to a new queen, but it can be stopped by White's bishop.
Only way to stop it, and now he's just got to get rid of that bishop, and I don't think that bishop's going to survive, is it?
It can step forward 1 square.
But then we take the pawn with our rook, and I don't know where that bishop's going to hide. I can't see the bishop hiding.
The problem as well is that you have to do something before that Black pawn promotes. It promotes with check.
But there's a brilliant move. You can play rook. You can put the rook onto c2.
Wow. Let's get the Stockfish evaluation. Stockfish moves up, because I think Jovanka might be right. There might be only one move to survive. Everything else loses. White has to retreat his rook to the 2nd rank.
4 seconds.
Oh,
2
he's going to
seconds.
find it.
Will he find it?
I don't think he's going to
Have
find
you
it.
made a move, Ivanchuk? Oh, he found it!
Just in time.
The genius, Ivanchuk.
Wow, look at Magnus. He was like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. But Ivanchuk, does he have any time on his clock? Maybe it's just a small delay here. We'll see his clock time refresh in a second. The idea is that when the Black rook takes the White bishop, White's rook is just going to give itself up.
I mean, it's still...
It's going to get rid of that Black pawn.
With some drawing chances, I guess, if you do that. So we might have the same thing here. He's throwing in a check first, and he's... OK. OK, now we get this weird ending. What is...
Have a queen.
We did not predict
The bar
this.
is saying this is winning for Magnus.
This is winning for Magnus.
Aha.
Here, you can win the White rook. You could have... Look at Magnus.
What is this?
He just realised he could have won the White rook. The Black queen could have gone to the b3 square, checked the White king, winning the White rook, game over. Suddenly, it's still winning, but he has to work hard again. He has to win it all over again, back to square one.
What?
I mean, that's maybe not the most obvious opportunity. Taking that pawn is natural, but he realised as soon as he played the move.
Yeah, it's like you said, Jovanka, when you play a move and you know you just missed the really simple winning move. And there is a way. I mean, the way you try to draw this is just if you've got the minor pieces, which is White, and I mean the minor pieces, the rook and the knight. You just got to make sure they're close to each other, defending each other. You need to have the king defending the knight defending the rook, and just try to keep them around each other. Try to keep some kind of blockade. But Magnus doesn't really believe in blockades, does he? Yeah. So it's also that extra pawn that could be very important. Probably a winning ending, this, but I'm not convinced.
mean, presumably the black king can kind of come round the edge of the board.
And then?
And then hopefully the queen can join in and give a check.
I mean, we're going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, we will be here for a long time.
This might be a 100 mover. The thing is, there's no checks. No matter where you pick up the black queen, you can put it on any square of the board. There's no safe checks.
You just got to be careful your rook.
Yeah.
So make sure the rook is on a safe square. Yeah, I don't know how you break it down. I mean, you've got to try to move the black king forwards at a safe moment, but even moving the black king forwards is not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's cut off.
Yeah.
And just while the players manoeuvre, Magnus trying to make progress, White trying to keep a fortress, maybe we just show that last bit again because it happens so quickly. It was this moment we mentioned that Black made a new queen. He took off the White bishop. Actually here, White could have just retreated his rook, stopped the pawn from promoting, and Ivanchuk would have probably been doing pretty well. He took this rook off the board. Black made a new queen. We saw a capture. And this is the moment Magnus nearly threw that tantrum and kind of got really angry with himself because here, instead of taking this pawn, he could have won instantly by giving a check, and you win the rook next move. And now he's having to work super hard again, all back to square one. And instead, he took this pawn. And if we catch up with current position, what do you guys think? Still winning or not?
I don't know if it was ever winning, to be sure. I don't know if it is winning, but the black king has moved a little bit forwards, but now there's a problem with that pawn. How does he defend that pawn? There's some tricks involved. You can't lose a pawn, I would have thought, if you're going to win this one. Maybe you can.
I mean, you could...
Maybe. Yeah, maybe you can try this move and then...
Attacking this knight, but the problem is you get checked back, get forced to retreat.
But he's got his king to the square now, and that king in front of the pawn in front of the black king, should I say, I feel is the target Magnus needs to go for.
But how is a queen and 2 pawns not winning against a knight and 1 pawn?
It's a good question. It should be. Yeah, I think.
White has a rook as well, so...
And a rook, of course.
If we do a count, so a rook and knight worth 8, and they're facing basically a queen and pawn. The other 2 pawns cancel each other out, so that's worth 10, a queen and pawn. So it's 10 versus 8. Should be winning, we think. But the problem is, how do you get through to this white king? There's no checks because knights are a king's best friend. The knight keeps the king super safe. The only way is to, at some point, push a pawn. I mean, either you win white's pawn for free with the black queen, not easy to do, or you push a pawn. And the problem is, in a situation like this, this pawn might get blockaded at some point. It's not easy to achieve right now, but I guess there might be a rook check. And white would go and win this pawn. I mean, it's just hard to make progress. Black in the end, moving the queen across. You're right, Kaya. This position, in a logical world, this would be completely winning for black. But chess is not always logical, unfortunately. There are exceptions to every rule.
Do you think Magnus, sitting there, feels he should win this game?
Yes, he's determined. He knows he missed that opportunity to win white's rook. Now, for example, he's hoping to create a passed pawn, and he's hoping that this pawn will win the game for black.
That was a very clever move, that check that Magnus has just played, and he's forced the white king now to pass the square. And if the white's knight is really the key defensive piece, and I think Magnus is going to use his pawn to divert that knight away. And when he does that, it does seem like it should be winning.
OK, so after the trade of pawns, suddenly the table base, this end-game database where everything has been worked out, came into force. And, well, his last move was a mistake, his rook move. And now, upon this position, black can actually win for reasons I don't know, but he could actually put the queen to d5, and that would have been a win. After this move, it's a draw.
Oh. But still not an easy draw.
No.
I mean, this is the kind of move, I think you mentioned, David, one of Magnus's favourite moves. You allow a discovered check. So wherever the knight moves, the black king is in check. But he's not worried about it because the white knight doesn't have anywhere fantastic.
But you can't go to any old square. You can only draw by moving the knight to the d2 square or the d4 square. That's it. Anything else, you're going to lose. Yeah.
So anywhere in front of the queen is the drawing idea. Yeah. But even that, to draw that, I mean, I would assume this position is completely winning. If I looked at this, I'd be like, the losing move.
That's a losing one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, knight's on the edge of the board. I mean, this one also looks odd.
Yeah.
I mean, the knight is almost trapping itself. I guess it's going to go to this f5 square, which we normally love, but it's loose.
this is like the beauty of chess and like the wonder of it all. Magnus's natural king move, that was also a mistake. And now the position is suddenly drawn.
Chess is evil.
I mean, table-based computers.
We should explain to some of the viewers who may be new to chess what table base is. It's when I think there's 7 pieces or fewer, and that has been worked out just mathematically by computers. They've worked out what the best moves are for each side on every turn. So objectively, with best play, I'm not sure, is it still a draw?
It's still a draw now.
Still a draw.
Yeah.
Like Simon says, from a human point of view, this just looks winning. You have a queen, you have a pawn. If the pawn wasn't there, draw, sure, but with this pawn, there must be a way to push it.
This is the thing. If I think if black can, well, he can push it now,
but it gets captured.
Oh.
If Ivanchuk, maybe he's found a way to draw. Maybe this is the drawing idea. If this pawn is pushed,
lovely.
Yeah, this pawn needs to push at some point to win the game. Just gets taken, and queen takes and a pin, skewer, and eventually we'll see king versus king and a draw. So you've got to push this pawn at the right moment when it's safe.
But the thing is now the white king can always threaten to come forwards, and with the white king coming forwards, you're really containing that pawn. So it might be a blockade that we've got here in this position.
You can give a check and repeat the position. If Ivanchuk does this, he checks, the king has to go back, and he'll repeat. OK, the king goes back in a different way. We should also mention that taking this knight is a draw. It's king and pawn, but the white king is safely in front of the black pawn. So study your king and pawn endgames. This one is a draw. You just need to know where to go with the white king. So Magnus won't go for this in the current position. It's all about this g3 square, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is probably why that king move was a mistake by Magnus, putting the king on the g line.
Well,
those moves
maybe he can go round again.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. The king is in the worst square. If you can get the king to avoid that trick, you might be able to push the pawn. This is, and he's trying it. So he's trying to get the king around. Now, at some point, that black pawn maybe can come forwards, right?
Yeah.
If he can push it forward safely, he's going to win, Magnus. But
OK.
Knight check, discover check.
Apparently still safe, still a draw.
Moves. Wow, he's really defending like a lion here, Ivanchuk. He's going to drop his knight back, and he's just going to sit. Maybe he's waiting. Maybe that's a fortress.
Yeah. Yeah, what a weird setup, though. You're like you've gone into your shell here, haven't you? You know, you're
held up into a ball.
That's it, armadillo. You know, get into the ball. No one's going to get me.
Armadillo.
Yeah.
That's a Friends thing again.
I've never heard of holiday armadillo.
Yeah.
Simon hasn't watched the full Monty, I found out today either. That's,
What?
No, I haven't. No, maybe tonight.
I thought that was you had to do that in school in England or something.
Yeah, I think it's a very English film, right? So yeah, maybe not primary school, I guess.
It came out when we were at university, right? So that's our excuse.
Right.
I think isn't that like one of Magnus Carlsen's favorite movies of all time?
Is that?
Probably. I've never discussed it with him, I think. But meanwhile, this fortress continues. Ivanchuk, he did it kind of the long way around. He brought his knight the whole way around the board, but he's found the ideal defensive square for it.
But Magnus doesn't believe in fortresses.
Yeah, they do exist, though.
They do. They certainly do. So how many moves have we got, David? Because the rule in chess is if there's no capture, so that means no pieces are taken off the board, or there's no pawn moves. If you have 50 moves that happen like that, the game is a draw. So that could well happen here, because there's no reason at all Magnus will agree to a draw. They're going to have to play it out, because obviously white can make a mistake.
Yeah. Black's last pawn move, the last pawn move or capture, was move 72.
Right. So we got 122 to get to before a draw can be claimed.
So it's about to be move 90, so we'll have 32 moves left.
Wow.
Ivanchuk needs to survive 32 moves without allowing a capture of one of his pieces or the black pawn from pushing.
Yeah.
But Magnus is like trying everything. You know, if the black king can at the right moment come maybe one square forwards, then he'd be potentially winning. If the black pawn can step one square forwards, he'd be potentially winning. So there's still danger here. But Chucky seems to know what he's doing. Yeah. It's a Chucky fortress, you know. No one gets through a Chuck fortress.
Yeah. Well, he has to kind of maintain that configuration. So the only few moves that he can play is move the knight to the g3 square.
Yeah.
And Magnus giving a check.
Oh, this looks a bit scary.
This looks a bit scary. The rook
scary.
has to kind of, again, curl itself up again and defend the knight. Rook goes to g2.
This is like a type of fortress where the gate, like the door, is made of straw or something. It's like at any moment someone could just burst through. But
definitely,
right now it's just about holding.
And you can only really move the rook up and down one square, maybe the king, but that looks so risky.
Yeah. Self-pinned.
You are, but it's holding. It's holding.
It's doing the job.
Yeah. The white knight is stuck, so white has to play around with his rook.
Chuck fortress. It's the only fortress you can get. What I mean, great defensive play though by Chucky, isn't it? I mean, we know that Magnus is probably the best endgame player in the world, and Chucky is holding him.
Yeah, only 3 players have been able to get a draw against Magnus Carlsen in this tournament. Of course, that loss against Niemann. Let's not take that into account. So Ivanchuk could be the 4th player here to get a point against Magnus Carlsen.
And Magnus seems to be running out of ideas. He's moving his king around, but it's a bit unclear what he's actually doing with this. Can white just continue waiting? White's rook can step up, white's rook can maybe step across. I'm not sure how narrow the margin for error is right now.
I can tell you there's only 3 moves, and this rook move was correct. If you'd moved the rook maybe off the G line, you would have lost.
Wow.
That's insane.
So I was very tempted to move it over 1 square.
Yeah, me too.
But that was losing, was it?
Yes.
Why is that losing? I don't know. I'm not going to look at it now either.
Well, I think we'll need days or months of analysis to go into a deep dive of this one. But Ivanchuk is
trying everything. Yeah, I mean, if the black king can move 1 square forwards, that also looks like to me should be winning for black, or nearly winning.
It's an important moment here, just to kind of say to you guys, because if he'd stepped back with the rook to G1, he would have lost. This, he still maintains the fortress. It's okay.
Really?
And he has to move his rook along the 2nd row. He can also defend the rook with his king, and it's still a draw. You know, so Ivanchuk here is just playing great chess. He's defending like a lion.
And let's just see what move we're on. Remember, if we get to move...
we have reached move 100. It's a super long game. The other games in round, round 11, correct, has started. We're going to jump into Niemann Aronian when this one finishes.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was thinking, Kai, that really good point you made. Queen and pawn against rook and knight, it should be winning, right? But if we think about it, white has 2 pieces, black has only 2 pieces. I mean, let's discard the kings. So white has a rook and knight. They're both pretty good. Yes, the queen is better than the rook, but white's knight is better than the black pawn. So it kind of makes some sense, I guess, that white is just about holding here. Of course, the queen is the best piece, and I think in practical terms, 90-something% of these games would end in a black win. But remember, this is kind of the top 1% of chess players in the world. This is the elite. And if it's objectively a correct draw, then Ivanchuk, I mean, so far he's done a good job of proving that.
20 moves to go. He's just, he's done 30 moves already. So if he can do another 20 moves, it will be a draw. Just be called a draw.
And I guess, so the thing Magnus Carlsen would have to do to win this game would be to get the white pieces out of the eye line of that pawn.
Yeah, if he can somehow kick the white pieces away. I think that's why, as Jovanka mentioned, the narrow path to survival for white is just keeping this white formation. This defensive formation Ivanchuk's found is perfect for stopping that black pawn. But if he can kick the pieces away or catch them at a moment where they're kind of off balance, then push his pawn himself, then he might win. But if not, then fortress and draw. I think Ivanchuk deserves the draw in this one, just for his defence. I
think he's played it perfectly as well. I mean, there's so many little opportunities, which I didn't realise that you pointed out, Jovanka, where you can just play one slightly bad move as white and you lose your fortress. But he hasn't done that. He's kept this harmony between his 3 pieces. But it really is like an animal in its shell, isn't it, here? You really are just sort of moving about in that shell, trying to keep the defence against the attacking queen here. And here he goes. I think he's going to hold it, right? I think he's going to hold this draw.
It's looking like he's found a good way, and he's navigating those traps very, very quickly and very easily as well. But still, I still think it's a long, long road ahead of him. But Magnus doesn't look like he's too optimistic anymore. He'd made some kind of gesture there, as if he's giving up the winning attempts. And OK, the knight moves. Magnus hasn't made any progress, we should mention, for those last 35 moves, so will we see that draw soon?
And this game, it's had like 5 or 6 different phases. It's like the opening phase, the middle game battle, the queens came off. It was still kind of half middle game, half end game, but just the way the players kind of transition and still so accurate. It's impressive. And Ivanchuk's built up 2.5 minutes on the clock as well, we should mention. He was down at a couple of seconds not that long ago. So he's very confident right now.
I'm not sure what else Black can try as well. I mean, Magnus has tried everything. He's put his king on the other side of the pawn, on this side of the pawn. He's trying to force his way through, but Chucky has stopped him at every hurdle. So just don't blunder now, Chucky, and you got this. You got this.
And I think it was quite instructive on his last move. White just pushed his king to the side. He didn't go after the black pawn. The white rook could have actually stepped up, check a couple of moves ago, and taken that black pawn, but white would have lost all coordination, and the black king would have come in. Now the black king is cut off by the white rook.
It's so important in these positions, isn't it, to keep your knight, rook, and king all defending each other. You know, when you're playing against the queen, you've got to keep your pieces close. You've got to keep them defending because they can drop off very, very easily if you try anything too much. And he's doing that. He's doing everything perfectly.
We've seen this position before, right?
I mean, if we see the position repeat itself 3 times, I think the game is automatically declared a draw by the server. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen something very similar at least. And Ivanchuk, is that the adrenaline? Is he shaking his foot? Is that making the whole computer vibrate?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's full of energy. At a sprightly 53 years old. And yeah, he's defending this one still very well. You can give a check with the white rook, for example, here.
And can you push the rook over to in front of the king? Maybe get that fortress position again as well.
Would also be a draw. Also checking the king with the knight would also be a draw. But of course, you have to be prepared to set that fortress up again. Yeah, this is pretty much quite a few moves draw. It's not such a narrow path.
You can attack the black queen with the white rook as well. Ivanchuk, do you reckon he's just counting in his mind how many moves it's been? His memory's very good.
Yeah, he could be working it out. Yeah.
Often the top players they can scroll on the computer screen and they can check when the last pawn move was made. But often they just kind of play and they just believe in their defence. They don't worry about the 50 move rule in rapid chess at least.
Well, it's only 10 moves now. 11 moves maybe to be totally accurate, but he's got to just survive for 11 moves without a capture or a pawn push. So we can count them down now. OK.
He's getting closer.
Getting close. 10 moves to go.
Give another check or go and attack the black queen with the white rook. Those look like the most natural. He kicks the king back. We've seen the black king in this side of the board before. Yeah. And Magnus he'll look to try and set one final trap. I don't see it, to be honest. He's tried everything already. Yeah. But what a high-quality game.
True grind like a Grandmaster game.
I mean, Magnus is doing the right thing. Never give up chances. Just if you have the advantage, no risk. Try and play for the win. Like maybe 10 games out of 100, he would have beaten Ivanchuk here. But that's still a decent percentage. Yeah, this one is headed towards a draw, though.
So Ivanchuk will still be in the lead in their head-to-head score in rapid chess. 15 wins before this game and 13 for Magnus. This will probably put another draw on that list.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
7 more moves.
7 more moves.
Yep. After Black's 122nd move, the game will be automatically a draw, unless there is a pawn push. And OK, the knight moving. Slightly surprised by that one, but it looks like the fortress is still intact.
Still holding it. I think the knight can always come back, I guess, as well. And there's not long to go now. And I think Magnus must realise that it's move 122, so good thing that's a check, otherwise you would lose because there's a nasty knight fork there. But you are checking the king there, so it's just
the white king.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, how narrow is the path now?
Not narrow at all. Any king move, any rook block is going to be a draw, and he chooses to make the rook move. And king comes forward. Let's see how this one works out.
I think we've seen something similar, at least before. Yeah. The white king is doing a great job of protecting both of its pieces at the same time.
5 moves. We can count them down.
I get
5.
to see some reaction from these two when the game finishes. Yep. It's lasted now for 70 minutes almost.
Yeah. It's 120 move coming up, or is that 120? Yep. So maybe it's only 3 moves now. or 2 moves. I can't count anymore.
After Black makes 3 moves, it will be
a draw.
A draw.
Yeah.
At this point, you can almost nearly blunder a piece as long as Black doesn't have time to take it before the 102nd.
God, that'd be risky. Blunder a piece and try to press the draw button really quickly.
It's happened to me. I had a rook and bishop versus rook endgame. My opponent made 49 moves and then blundered his rook on move 50. But before I had time to take it, I had to make my 50th move and take it on the 51st.
Oh,
and he claimed the draw.
Claimed the draw. Oh.
And he pretended he did it by accident.
Move 122.
Okay. The game, unless I'm counting wrong, it should be a draw after Black's move now.
Maybe Chucky wants to play it on a little bit. No, Chucky.
We're going to see.
It is a draw. It is a draw.
It is a draw after 123 moves in 17 minutes. 2 legends in chess, the great Vasyl Ivanchuk, with a sigh of relief. He gets a draw against world #1 Magnus Carlsen. A great game. How will you describe this game, David?
A roller coaster of emotion and just high quality. There was one opportunity for Magnus to win on the spot. We should mention Magnus saw that as soon as he missed it. But yeah, in general, fair result. Both players, 2 warriors, battling it out.
And these two will now have 10 minutes to get ready for the round 11.